Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Discover Real Estate podcast. This is a special July market update where we're going to be featuring a special guest from the other side of the United States, over in Kentucky. I'm very excited to be bringing Andrea Coughtry onto our show. Um, Now, real quick, we're going to see how good she's done at updating her bio because I'm going to share her website in a moment. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Andrea to the stage. What's up, Andrea?
Hey there, how are you?
Doing awesome. Doing awesome. This is your formal intro here. I'm just going to do a screen share, and we're going to just so we let everyone know who you are. Now, full disclosure, Andrea, you and I have been coaching together for some
Mhm.
time. You're obviously a top level agent out in Kentucky.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and one of the things we haven't done actually is vet your website. So let's see what we have.
Yeah.
For those that are curious about Andrea Coughtry, she's a Kentucky native, a full-time realtor. Before delving into real estate, Andrea embarked on a journey of academic excellence, earning her Master of Business Administration. Andrea ventured into property management and investing during her graduate studies and became a licensed realtor. Today, she stands as the proud team leader and CEO of Coughtry Enterprises. At the helm of Coughtry Enterprises, Andrea offers investors turnkey opportunities in the heart of Lexington and beyond. Her team navigates the buying and selling processes of residential commercial properties for their clients, crafting solutions tailored to the unique needs of each client. I'm sold, Andrea.
I think it's pretty good, actually. I was
It's pretty
nervous.
good. So you've got you've been married for how long, Andrea?
Oh, um,
You should know that.
yeah. Oh, we've forgotten our anniversary before, and my husband's aunt sent us like a gift. She always sends us J. Alexander gift cards. I'm like, oh, how cute. We'll go tomorrow on our anniversary. And we both were looking at the date and we're like, and she texted us happy anniversary. I'm like, oh my God, today's our anniversary. So we're the worst timeline people. Like, I think we exist in a black hole and we are the worst. So we've been together since like 2012. And then
Okay,
we've
so
been married since
2012,
20. Yeah.
and your son's super active in soccer. I know you've got your dog named Biscuit,
Yes.
and if you follow Andrea's socials, you're going to get a lot of window into travel, culinary adventures,
Oh,
artisanal cocktails, and fashion. So while I'm talking you up, I think it's worth noticing that um, you are an outstanding leader in your community for sure.
thank you.
And, being a part of the Commercial Association of Lexington, the Building Industry of Association of Lexington, the NAR, Bluegrass Association of Realtors, and now most recently an ambassador for Inman Connect, right?
Yeah.
Anything new that we need to add to the resume there, Andrea, that we're missing?
The board of baby health, if that didn't say that, but that's something that I'm super passionate about. It's free healthcare for kids 18 and under in Lexington. So if that wasn't on there, I should add that because I've been doing that for a few years now. So yeah, that's
Okay.
one pretty passionate about.
Well, I know we're going to talk about the market, and obviously a big reason why I think it's valuable to get insight from you, Andrea, is you're not just a real estate broker, but you're also actively investing into real estate. You're managing full portfolios for yourself and for your clients. And so I always tell folks, hey, if you're going to invest in a real estate, if you're going to hire someone to help you invest in a real estate, make sure that you're doing business with the financial doctor who's eating their own medicine.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a difference between a real estate practice versus a real estate habit. And I think that for our listeners, if you have a real estate practice, it means you're practicing, on your people
Practice
versus
what you.
yeah,
So
you got to
we're
practice.
so you can't edit this out, but I'm going to say it anyway. Um, this blows my mind that people sell real estate and have been selling real estate and they're not like in the middle of a move and they don't own their own house. If you've been selling real estate for a few years and you do not own your own house, you should probably figure that out. Yeah.
And we know some great agents that could help you guys. So if you need help with creative financing, I think this is a great call to action for all of our consumers who are either renting now and feel like that buying's not even an option. If you take one thing away from this meeting regarding the market, is that there are options right now, especially as it relates to owner financing purchases. If you can't get pre-approved for a loan, that doesn't rule you out from actually being able to own a home. So we'll have to tee up multiple future podcasts to talk about, creative buying opportunities, and creative investing opportunities, especially over in your neck of the woods. But for today, I just wanted to introduce you to our shared audience, because I think you bring a lot of credibility and value to the conversation of what should we do with our real estate. And I think that for today, I'd love to just do a national overview of the market. And for anyone who's curious about reaching out to Andrea, just put her website over into the comments there.
And
Because I think
all of our socials, and if you don't like me, you might like someone on my team. That's what I always say. I've got such a fun group of some of them are a lot nicer than me.
well, I would say that it's been a real pleasure getting to coach you, Andrea, and see you grow. I think you're unique in the sense that you provide a multifaceted value to your clients, both your building clients and also your investor clients. And so I think they're all probably curious to know, what do we think is going to happen with the market? And Josie, by the way, just commented saying this is real-time feedback. This is happening live right now. Josie just commented that she's proud to be a part of Coughtry Enterprises and have a resilient, inspiring leader. I wish where's my staff? No. Maybe you guys should get on and comment like this. Take a note from Andrea's team. So Andrea, what do you see happening in the market in this coming year?
It's really, I'm always hesitant to make predictions because things happen, and I am honestly not that political, but anytime not that I'm not political, but I keep my political opinions to myself. But I think major things happen. I mean, a candidate was just shot, and I think things can shift very dramatically as external factors that we have no control over shift. But when I look at what's going to happen the second half of this year, which is close enough to kind of speak to, the Lexington market, honestly, we have some luxury inventory. We don't have a ton. Our prices have still increased over last year. We have a more steady market than what you're going to be experiencing on the West Coast. So there's nothing rocky. There's no major shifts. I still think there will be home price appreciation. I still think inventory is tight. We still have a really close turnover time for our listings. Some things over $500,000 are sitting a little longer than they did last year. But really, if you're in our sweet spot is in Lexington. If you've got anything below 350, you're going to get multiple offers if it's livable, and very competitive multiple offers. There's still a lot of cash floating around out there in Lexington. So I think that it's going to be a strong second half of the year. I think people are still going to feel that in the first half of next year.
So I wanted to bring you in as a contrasting opinion because I really think that we have contrasting markets. So if we look at the national headlines, there's obviously still a prediction of sales that's comparable to last year. Last year we had one of our lowest sales actually in real estate since 1992. So if we can at least beat that, that's a good sign. But I think there'll be people in the industry, our industry, that are feeling the squeeze just based on lower volume of transactions. And we can't predict the future. So really, for our viewers, the best we can do for you guys is just give you, the information that we're getting. And this is a range of predicted forecasts for appreciation, which truthfully, at a 2.8% average national appreciation, that is a much more sustainable number than the double-digit appreciation we were seeing during COVID, right? Which was really artificially propagated by the decreased interest rates. So,
and I'm surprised to see Zillow's so low, because I don't know. And just a little interjection, we use a few different mathematical algorithms in addition to our personal comparative market analysis when we're pricing properties. And, Zillow's been on really the higher spectrum lately, which has been good because Zillow is the most consumer facing platform. So that's what consumers are seeing. So it's strange for me to see their actual pricing predictions on upcoming homes be higher, yet their overall price forecasts be lower.
Well, that's an interesting thing to note because for a long time during COVID, the Zestimate would be like considered kind of the sell it now price, right? And people were typically overshooting their Zestimate for their list price and getting more. I think Zillow's one, they've gotten more refined with their algorithm, especially for homes and neighborhoods. Now, for up here in Oregon, when we have rural properties or there's a lot of improvements that have been made to the home that aren't factored in, the Zestimate they disclose on their website could be 50% above or below actual market value. So that gives you their confidence in their projection. Is if you've got a $500,000 home and his estimate says it's worth 500K, well, really that means it could be anywhere from 250 to 750. And so that's just so they don't get sued, right?
Absolutely. But for sellers to note and for agents to note, if you haven't noticed this, I had one I listed a week ago and it was the Zestimate was like 578. We listed at 612. The Zestimate shot up to 608 overnight. And, it's just when you have a property that maybe some things like especially if you've added a bed or a bath, that Zestimate's going to shoot up. So we do factor that into our pricing strategy. So it's just funny to see how they're lower on the forecast when they've actually been pretty hefty on list prices lately. So,
yeah. Well, we'll talk about. I actually have a few snapshots onto statewide Zillows that we'll talk about here in a moment. But I think that inventory, if we look at the contrasting inventory, I'll just go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll start with your neck of the woods, Andrea. Interestingly enough, we see over 18,000 active listings in the state of Kentucky. Now, I'd be curious to hear from you what that number was like last year, but we know nationally, according to Altos reports, that we're still seeing on average about a 40% increase in inventory this time over last year.
Yeah.
So that's good news for buyers, right? More options for your buyers to shop with, likely less aggressive bidding wars. Now, that story becomes a lot more pronounced as we head over to the West Coast. So I'll pull up Oregon.
Yeah.
This is much more than 40% growth. This is everything active, just as residential. And we'll do a follow-up conversation about commercial, because I think that's going to be an even more stark conversation when we look at all of the retail space that's vacant and it's available, especially in that asset class. We're seeing a huge increase in inventory there. But I think this is, if there's one thing everyone takes away from this webinar, be the cautionary tale of what inventory can do to pricing. We don't fully know the effects that this 22,422 active homes in the state of Oregon will have. But what we can say for sure, if we just talked about the luxury market, this is way more than double the amount of estate legacy type properties than we've ever seen.
I was going to ask you to scroll up so we could see some of the higher priced ones. Because I saw some earlier, there were like 40 some, and those look like, legacy estates, which I feel like you don't often see. So seeing some of that is pretty cool. We don't get a ton of that. I mean, you notice the price difference when you just did a quick click into Lexington and you had price descending. So you saw, the vast difference. I mean, you had 40 millions to start. That was significant.
Yeah, you're pretty quick. You're down to the 5 millions in your neck of the woods. And obviously in Oregon, we've got a lot of these super large rural properties.
That's stunning.
And I've just never seen this amount of luxury real estate on the market ever in the last 10 years of being in real estate. And then Washington, if we just do a quick scan over the West Coast, you guys, Washington is up to 30,000 active listings across the state of Washington. And again, a huge amount of options over in the $5 million plus range.
Yeah.
So if you've got these legacy properties where you're trying to get 5 to 15 million, you've got to be totally honest with yourself and look at anyone who's shopping with this amount of cash is going to be looking at all of their options in the Northwest, Oregon, Washington, Idaho. They're typically not looking in just one state.
That's
Um,
that's not the same here. If you're looking in Lexington, you might be looking, Georgetown, Richmond, Danville, Nicholasville, some of the smaller outlying cities. But I never really thought of that. So that's a really cool point that you just made. People in that price range, it's not that important which zip code they're in at all or which coast they're on. So you guys do have quite a few options. And I never thought of that, but you're not just competing in your local market, you're competing in the neighboring markets.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, I think remote work has kind of eliminated a lot of the normal boundaries and barriers we see to proximity moves. And a huge part of what's driving all the luxury market is we can't talk about moving from other states if we don't talk about California. They're sitting there with almost 100,000 active listings.
that is insane.
98,898 properties. A lot of these being sold for, I mean, you can see obviously the luxury market goes into the 9-figure territory once you go to California.
Listings.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't talk about how we're going to get a few of these listings, Andrea. But these sales are going to drive luxury purchases in the neighboring markets. But people are going to be extra critical with their money because a lot of these homes that are selling on the luxury end are selling for below replacement value,
Stunning.
right? Yeah, you've got this property for 34 days in San Clemente that's 13,000 square feet. If you've got someone building down there at $400 a square foot on dirt that's worth $10 million, you can't replace this. You can't replace these properties for what they're charging. As exorbitant as this seems, the build costs are going up too. So I think all of this.
Another thing, not to interrupt, but just a great segue into new construction briefly is what you just said. So you cannot build those properties. You can't, one, find the dirt, and two, you can't build the properties. So I myself chose to purchase something that needed a lot of renovation on the inside because the land that I have, so I'm on 12 acres right now, just as a glimpse of what's happening in the market. So I'm on 12 acres and I've got 10,000 square foot of house. We had to do a massive renovation, but in that same neighborhood, 1 year later, someone paid $915,000 for 5 acres in this 3 houses over to bulldoze the house down. So when you look, Lexington's luxury market has really started to tick up. There was a 20,000 square foot home in the neighborhood as well that had been on and off the market for years, never sold. They put it up this summer and sold it within 2 months for 4.5. Yeah. And so for Lexington, those are huge swings, big swings.
So I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think that people who are just hearing about these national conversations about the market of, okay, inventory stacking up. Well, that's not the case in every area, right? So there are still, for example, low inventory pockets within the Oregon market where, and when we talk about low inventory, just to catch everybody up, 6 to 7 months, as you can see here, is considered a balanced market. Anything over 7 months is considered a buyer's market, which we haven't really seen since 2010, 2011, 2012 was the last time we saw that on a national average. And then a seller's market is what we've been accustomed to for over the last decade. And in many cases, an extreme seller's market. Seller's market, really, I think anything below 5 months of inventory would be considered a seller's market. 5 to 6 months still probably would fall in a neutral market based on my definition. NAR says 6 to 7. But you guys have been in extreme seller's market, with really a less than a month of inventory for several years. And then I think you mentioned, what was your inventory stack up over the last year?
So I had pulled some stats so that I make sure I tell you correctly, because sometimes when I get focused on talking, I'm not the best at that. But so last year it was 1.1. Now it's just 1.59.
Okay.
But
so you're still in inventory.
Yeah, but I feel the shift because, we listed a condo and we hadn't seen one of those condos come up for sale in over a year. We listed it, one listed, one listed. So when I went out to show mine the other day, I showed 3.
Yeah.
But really quick, I want to mention one thing that's important because I think that for me, any podcast that I do and any talks that I do, I like for it to be double-sided. I like to bring value for the agents and I like to bring value for the buyers, sellers, and investors and developers. And one thing I will say, we both talked about, we like KCM, keeping current matters. We like to pull data from the MLS, of course, our multiple listing systems, and then RPR, Realtors Property Resource. I love. You gave me a new one that you mentioned earlier. It's ALTOS.
Yeah,
Research.
Altos reporting. Yep. So Altos reports and Altos research. I'll put the link to the YouTube of another video they just dropped 10 days ago. But that's something worth subscribing to.
Yeah.
I'll end up
I was listening to a podcast a few years ago, and she kept saying KCM, and I thought she was saying like KCM. And I've researched and Googled, and I'd never even heard of KCM. I've been a big fan for a few years now, but it took me forever to find it. So I really love when we give little nuggets that we can like break it down for the agents. But then for clients, I wanted to talk about something that you just mentioned, how heavy of a seller's market we've been in. And this is for the sell side and the buy side, right? And I know there's a lot of changes. We won't get into that, but a lot of agents have been listing properties and selling them because all it took was putting a sign in the yard. Okay.
Yep.
That is going to continually shift as the market equilibrium is shifting. You're going to need a listing agent who is actually well versed in pricing, can speak to actual market knowledge, a full time dedicated real estate agent who knows tips, tricks, tactics to actually sell homes. When you and I were selling homes, when I would show a house 10, 15 times, it had been on market 6 months. You talk to a lot of agents and they're like, what? Like, that wasn't that long ago, actually. And then when you're looking at the buy side, right? So I love this because so now buyers, your agents have been really well versed at throwing everything at the seller. Well, what about getting something for you? I mean, we just went under contract last night and got $10,000 closing costs for our client. So your buyer's agent actually matters, that they are well versed in tactics to get you a better deal. Not every home is multiple offer anymore. You don't have to give list price. I think you have to have good agents that have well balanced knowledge. And a new agent is amazing. I love new agents. They're welcome on my team. I love to mentor, train them, and do transactions with them. But if you are a new agent, make sure you are being well versed in listing tactics and buying tactics that aren't just what you've seen in the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point that you bring up, Andrea, is that there is a difference now in how you navigate the market. There's just a lot of inventory that's sitting. So this story that's behind this graph is, if you take 2020, a national average of a month of inventory, there's no historical precedence for this. If we go back even 40 years, have we ever really seen that happen? So that is what's in front and center in everyone's mind of this crazy bidding war environment. And so, you guys have only seen maybe a 30% increase in inventory, but even that is starting to manifest as a lot more options for buyers and better deal for buyers. We're much closer to the other end of this national average, where we've gone from a month of inventory to 3, 4, even 5 months of inventory in some of our markets here in Oregon. And so it feels like a totally different market. It feels like a foreign land. When you go on and you see all these active real estate signs, you see listings popping up everywhere. You see one seller goes on the market, and then now there's truly like 4 or 5 more soon to follow in that same neighborhood, just like you're talking about. And I think the impetus it puts on for sellers is, one, you really have to be more aggressive in your starting price than you ever have been. So case in point, we have some sellers who have opted to start with what we call a test the market price, where we say, hey, maybe the market can bear this based on sold data. Maybe it could appraise for that. But the reality is, with what we're competing with on the active market, lower starting prices are warranted just to compete. Well, sellers still want to, and I get it. They want to try out and say, well, I want to go for the price that's the max that it can appraise for. And what happens is that sometimes we end up following the market down based on how active inventory pops up. Versus we have another seller who took our advice and they wanted to go for a higher price, but we said, hey, if we price it right, come in under the $600,000 mark. We put a compelling video package together that's going to get people interested from other communities. And I think that's another element for marketing. Andrea, you do a good job on this as well, just showcasing your listings. Obviously, with Door, that's one of our niches is wanting to try to be able to create a product that sells a house without someone actually having to see it in person, because that opens up the audience of your buyers, right? For those folks that are looking at homes from California or from Washington or from the East Coast and vice versa.
Remote work, right? So we're seeing an influx. I have worked with 2 buyers from Portland, Oregon recently that they're done with the city and they want Kentucky. And, one of them worked remote and the other relocated here for a job in Lexington.
No. Well, you brought in a great point that we're also seeing on the note of politics. We'll touch on interest rates in a moment, but I did want to make a note about politics because I think an election year creates this level of uncertainty. And I think that we see a lot of people holding off on their real estate goals because they want to see how the election turns out. And then we also see a lot of people preemptively making the move out of certain states based on the political environment of that state. Case in point, Oregon. We're losing a lot of conservative voters to states like Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, and Idaho. We're seeing a mass exodus from our state to these locations. And also, we're getting some of your people headed our way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, let's trade off.
Yeah. mostly from California. We get a lot of people moving up from there. But there are some people that want to be more in a more progressive environment, and Oregon being the first state ever to legalize the medicinal use of psychedelic mushrooms. There's certain things.
Oh my gosh, that's whoa.
So that's a little nugget for you guys there in Kentucky.
Yeah.
But we have these external factors. So the last thing I wanted to touch on, Andrea, is and maybe we'll bring a lender on to talk next time with us, but I wanted to touch on rates. This has been like the Fugazi of predictions, because I feel like we were having a conversation 6 months ago about how we were expecting, based on Fannie Mae and NAR and several other economic experts, predicting 6 drops this year. And we've seen basically 0, maybe 1. We just started seeing some relief on rates. But I think that the problem is that the buyers that are saying, oh, I want to wait for rates to drop before I can move into the market, I would really caution your clientele and my clientele as well to making the mistake of thinking that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence as it relates to buying. Because we know that the moment that these rates drop down, we could go back to this slide of appreciation, and this 2.8 number could very easily double, triple, or quadruple overnight.
Yeah.
Just based on responding to the rates. So the increase in rates has done us all actually some level of a favor by slowing this appreciation down to something that's more manageable. But people that are still out there hoping for, this crazy market crash that's going to suddenly make everything affordable, I think that would be my biggest cautionary advice, to not wait to explore getting your foot in the door with home ownership. And I think next market update we should dive into the opportunities for investors, because like you were saying before, you're negotiating great deals for your buyers right now, Andrea. I know we are over here as well. And I just see a lot of opportunity coming up on the commercial asset classes, far beyond even what we're seeing on the residential side. What would you, if you could give people a plug for that on opportunities for investing, what would you say?
I think let's tune in next Friday, and I will be at Bitcoin conference. So I will be coming live from BTC 2024 Nashville, baby. But
Nice.
I think that it would be really cool for both of us to pull a single family property and
Mhm.
compare what it would cost to buy it and then what it would cost to rent it in both of our communities. I love doing those types of analysis because I think it really helps show what investors can achieve. And I work with investors from a lot of different states. I've got the most investors actually coming from out of Hawaii because we do the turnkey solutions. So some of them have never been to Lexington. Actually, one of my best clients I've ever met turned most amazing friend. You might get to meet them in Vegas. They are here now in Kentucky, but they've just referred so many people to me. And basically, they kind of tell us how they want to grow their portfolio. We try to find the properties that fit exactly what they're looking for, their niche, whether that's commercial, large multifamily, SFRs. And then we just run the analysis with them. And I think that'd be kind of fun if you and I did that, just a head-to-head comparison of what, like, let's pick a price, like something between, let's say for an SFR, let's do something under 425.
Okay, you're
That's
on.
that price range.
Yeah. Yeah,
What's
we'll
the
do that. Let's do something at
market?
425, and then let's do something at like, no, let's do something at like 2 million, like
Let's
a
do
larger.
multifamily. Multifamily under 3 million.
Okay, multifamily under 3 million, single family under 450.
5. 450.
Or-
Okay.
Yeah, I might have a hard time finding 425.
Okay.
My
Yeah.
market. I love that, and I think a good spot to end on. You're on, Andrea. Challenge accepted, and
That's
uh, a good thing to end on. One of the buzzes in our industry has been around the NAR settlement as it relates to real estate commissions, and so I think this is a great chance to be reminded of anyone who's actively working with a real estate professional to be reminded commissions always still are and always have been negotiable.
I had that conversation today. The guy's like,
Yeah.
I know that you showed us 3, but there's 2 other listing agents because I've got one listed, 2 agents have one listed. He's
Yeah.
like, so I don't understand how this works. And very educated individuals, both in the medical profession. And, I just went through it. I'm like, but it's always been the good. He's like, I thought it was all, I'm like, it's never been said. It's never been said. So come on. Like, but anyway, hey, transparency works. So whatever's best for the consumers, right?
Well, I think that's one of the gifts of it, right? Like some people are uh, worried about this change in the industry, and I welcome this change because I think that it's the proper accountability for value to be challenged.
Yeah.
And so candor is one of our values, and Andrea, you do a great job at this, but I think we talk openly at saying, hey, are we really providing the value to our clients that they're paying for it? And if not, we either need to reduce the rate that we're charging our clients, or we need to increase the value to match what we're charging. And that's part of the reason why we've built things like our performance-based commission structure for our listings. Hey, if we can get you that test the market price, great. If we're finding ourselves being on that days on market scenario where we're having to come back to you with price drops, well, we're not making a call for a price drop without also offering, the discount in the commission structure, so as to feel like we're really meeting our client in the pain of the challenge of this market. And conversely, I think on the buying side, that's where there's been the most amount of confusion as to who pays for the buyer agency. Well, the buyer has always paid for their representation through the sale price of the home, right? It's just come out of escrow through the seller's cost sheet.
Right.
And so that change, may be occurring. Washington already made this change in January, and we've seen relatively little change on how much agents are getting paid for buyer agency service. But I think this is a telling slide to remind our consumers that it's not that commission wasn't negotiable. It's just that people weren't negotiating.
Yeah.
And 30%, in fact, 70% of people were not negotiating rates. 13% of people saying,
Being a no really quick, I would just want to say that some of that is because their agents were that good and their agents were providing that much value. I can tell you already that I would not be negotiating your rate if you came to list my house. I've been coaching with you.
Yeah.
I give you more. I'd probably be like, well, shit, Tim, you get 7. You're so valuable.
Well, especially if you have the value. But I think that's where I think that's where what we're saying is that you don't need to negotiate our rate because we're signing up to be in business partnership with you. So we're going to cut our rate if we're not delivering the value,
Yeah.
right? And if we're making an offer on the buy side and the seller's only offering, 2% and our rate's at 2.5, then I'm going to have that honest conversation with my buyers saying, you know what, I'm going to fight to earn that extra 0.5% of value to be added onto your buyer cost sheet. And then at the end, our value is 5 stars or nothing. If we can't provide 5 stars of service, we expect you to fire us. And if
Yeah.
you can't get to the end of the transaction and say, wow, I'm really happy with the rate that I'm paying on commission, then let's negotiate it at that point. And I think that is the kind of business relationships we want to have. Has that bitten me in the butt a time or two? Sure. But for the most part, the kind of clients I attract into my world are the ones that actually really see the value that I'm providing. I know that's the same for you, Andrea. And so I look forward to our exercise next week.
Yeah.
We'll talk about single family investment opportunity, a case study on that, comparing between Oregon and Kentucky. We'll talk about a multifamily under 2 million or under 3 million, we could say.
Yeah.
And so that'll be our live Friday. And then a week after that, we'll need to provide someone some kind of update from Vegas, right?
Live. We'll be live together live.
Live together from Vegas.
Yes.
Any for those, especially for those tuning in that are in the industry, other agents, what can they expect in terms of takeaways from Inman Connect out of Vegas?
Geez, because I'm an Inman ambassador, we just had a mandatory meeting yesterday. I think that you are going to, let me give you this. The number one thing, and I've mentioned this to you, every time I go to Inman, I walk away and I make a major shift in my business for the better. My first admin came after Inman. My first buyer's agent came after Inman. I hired a full-time property manager after Inman Miami. It gives you the energy and excitement that you need in order to make the decisions you should have made. And it also levels the playing ground. You look at some of your idols, and we talked about this yesterday on our coaching call, but these people are human and they're going through the same things you're going through. And it really breaks down barriers and walls. And you realize the only thing different that you're doing and I'm doing is our markets a lot of times. And I think that just the energy and excitement is amazing. I come for the education and I stay for the relationships and network building. So we will have even more energy than we normally have, not next Friday, but the Friday after. Hopefully. Depends if we go to karaoke Thursday night.
Oh boy. We'll keep that off. So we'll keep that off socials unless it's really good. So I want to close with a comment from Dustin because we had one of our viewers pop in here, and I think this is a great way to end on it. Part of the reason why we go to these conferences and why we're collaborating with agents, not just all over our states, but all over the country, is because I know, Andrea, you're the same way with this, is like, if a seller's going to entrust us with 6% or 5.9% of the sale of their home, I look at that as that they're making a major sacrifice and a risk and an investment into protecting the equity of that property. So if there's any way, shape, or form that we could take that money and invest it properly in a manner that's going to bring them an extra $2 back for every dollar they're spending, that's our obligation. So absolutely, most agents that are offering discount commissions, unfortunately, they're not discounting their profit. They're keeping the same profit margin and they're just lowering what they're spending on marketing. And that's why we're really advising against having sellers really consider in this particular market that you get what you pay for. Because you're absolutely right, Dustin. With lower commissions, that usually means less money spent on marketing. I mean, I'm spending thousands of dollars on every listing we put live before it even hits the market. I know I'm spending more than the average agent to represent our properties well, because that's the job, right? I have to be willing to spend my own money. You got to spend your money to take that risk. So, Dustin, I appreciate you bringing this up, and tune in next week, because I think that we'll be able to provide you guys not only a window into what we can do to provide value for sellers, but also what we can do to provide value for our buyer agents. What do you think, Andrea?
Thanks, Dustin, for the comment. Tune in next week. We'll have a little battle of where is it better to invest.
Oh boy. We'll see who wins that. That'll be fun. Andrea, hey, thanks for jumping on the show. We appreciate you a lot. Thanks for bringing your insight and your energy, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. That's a wrap. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Discovering Real Estate across the country, whether it's in Oregon, in the Northwest, Dustin tuning in from Arizona. We've got people from all over the place that are wanting to make good real estate decisions, and we want to bring you in on the conversation. So if you're interested in being a guest and you feel like you could provide some value in part of this conversation, feel free to send me a message direct. Otherwise, until next time, guys, I'm Tim here with Discover Real Estate, here to help you find your people and find your place.